let's go to our last guest of the day, the one and only Gordan Ryan. I ran through his entire resume, so he won't be impressed with this intro. But here we are. Wow, I'm impressed with this setup. Holy shit! What is this? Is this in your home?
This isn't my home. We have our trophy room behind us, and I'm in a throne that was a Christmas gift by Gary Tonin. So
Wow.
yeah, it's like my little where I do all my interviews if I can.
This is an incredible setup. Well done. And apropos, given your success and also, given your nickname. By the way, I see top right, you have some knives over there. What's going on over there?
Yeah, so John is like a knife fanatic, our coach John Denner. So
yes.
Whenever we like win a big tournament or we get promoted, he'll like gift us a knife or a sword. So I have them like all over. Like I have swords on the wall next to me here. So we have like it's a combination of like medals that I won, belts that I won, like a bunch of different things that people gave me, Incredible. And then the knives that John gave us. So
I'm not used to seeing you without the gray hair these days. Why the natural look?
I'm kind of incognito, and people, even my friends, get confused, especially when I shave my face and I have no beard.
Yeah.
But it's cool because I can go out and compete with the white hair, and then like if I don't want to get like ultra harassed in public, because everyone like knows the white hair. So if I go back to my natural hair, and I just stop dyeing it, then people like don't recognize me as much. So if I want to kind of go incognito, then I just go back to the brown.
And why incognito right now?
I just like haven't been competing. ADCC happened, and I got a little bit injured. I was rehabbing my knee after ADCC, and then we've just been trying to open up our school. So I've just been working on trying to get the school in Austin opened up that we've been working on for years now. So that's my main priority.
Any chance it opens this year?
Yeah, we should be open in the next couple of months, I'm hoping. So we're up in North Austin, and I'm hoping that we should be open the absolute latest by June, but people keep asking me and I keep telling them 2 months, and it's been like 2 years. So I don't want to, nobody quote me, but I think we should be open the next couple months.
Okay. Good luck with that. By the way, we just spoke to Bo Nickal. I didn't really plan this, but you guys were back to back and I saw you guys training together. What was your experience like with him?
Oh, he's the best. Just a super nice guy. We trained together. We went out and I took him around Austin a little bit and, trying to coerce him to come back to Austin because he's such good training. But he's a very exceptional athlete. He just wants to learn. Like he puts himself. There's a lot of wrestlers who come in and just try to not get submitted, try to avoid submissions. But Bo really comes in with a learning mindset where, he was playing leg locks with some of the best leg lockers that we have in the gym. He was playing guard, he was playing bottom position. And so, his ability to, number one, just throw his throw his ego out the door and put himself in positions where he isn't really good and be willing to get submitted and put himself in bad positions. And his ability to learn, like when he asks a question, he knows what questions to ask, which is very rare with someone who is coming from a completely different martial art. But he asks the right questions. He's willing to learn, and he learns very quickly. So he's going to be an issue, I think, in the middleweight division.
Do you feel like he's just scratching the surface with his jiu-jitsu? Obviously, we know about his wrestling background, but he's still, a neophyte when it comes to MMA. Do you think there's much more that we can see out of him from a grappling perspective?
Yeah, for sure. I think that I think even if obviously he has some potential issues with the UFC allowing him to do so, but I think if he jumps into some actual grappling competitions like he was doing before he was fighting in the UFC, just for fun, like it's not gonna. If he jumps into like a Fight Pass Invitational, for example, even if he loses to a good guy, it's not really going to do anything for his mixed martial arts brand. It's not going to negatively impact him. But just having him even jump in some grappling tournaments just to kind of get the experience. A lot of people were criticizing him, in his last fight for kind of being a boring fight or whatever the case is. But I looked at that fight and I was like, there is no way that Bo fought this way, other than to get experience on the feet at a high level, like in front of a crowd. And I asked him and he was like, yeah, I was just trying to get experience out there and, play on the feet. I don't really play on the feet too much. You have a lot of early finishes. And I was like, yeah, exactly. So people don't understand, like he wants to learn. He wants to get the experience. He wants to get the time in the octagon. And I think, insofar as jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts, I think he's kind of just scratching the surface. Obviously, he's a very credentialed wrestler, um, and American legend. But I think that there's just so much more for him to learn. Pretty much in every area. So I'm excited to see him, especially for his next fight against the Ritter, because I've trained with both of these guys a fair amount. So I'm excited for that.
We saw in November you in Jones's corner, and I'm wondering now, as you're getting a little bit older, do you think more MMA fight? Are you open to this? Do you want to coach more of these guys, or is this just a coincidence?
Yeah, it was funny with John. He kind of just messaged me on Instagram. We had talked a little bit back and forth, but he messaged me one day and he was like, "Hey, can you come out?" And I was actually helping him for the first Stipe fight, that one that got canceled. And thank God I left like before he got hurt. I don't want anybody to blame me for that. But then I came back. It was kind of like a weird timing because I was in camp for ADCC and I was competing in ADCC, and I was like, I can't come during the camp, but right after the camp I'll come, because he was fighting in November and ADCC was August. So I was like, after the camp I'll come, and I ended up staying for like 6 weeks, or 5 or 6 weeks, I think it was, for that camp. And I'm always willing to help coach, and especially high level guys. And it just so happens that John Jones was the first high level guy that asked me to actually come and be part of his camp. So
Wow.
yeah, I think it was a great experience for myself. Definitely as a high level coach, and for him, because whenever people come to us, it's just John is coaching, because John is just the coach of coaches. So it's always people taking John's classes. But because I got to go to him in Albuquerque, I had the kind of the opportunity to explore high level coaching, where I was one of the guys in charge. Obviously Greg was, and the other coaches were ahead of me because they've been with John for so long. But just being one of the core coaches, and being there just as a coach and not as also as an athlete, was a really cool experience. So I'm open to coaching high level guys, in the UFC. But John was just the first person to ever ask me. So
Wow, that surprises me, but good on him. If this Aspinall fight comes to fruition, do you think you'll, given his grappling background, do you think you'll work with him again?
Yeah, I think so. That's totally up to him. Like, I've worked with a lot of UFC fighters in the past, but it's just been like, kind of sporadic training where they come to Austin and they ask me questions. But like, doing the whole camp almost with John was like my first like real coaching experience. But I think that him and Greg and the rest of the coaches were pleased with my ability to translate my knowledge into his game, and work with him the way that he learned. So it would be my honor if he wants to have me back coaching him for I lost my light, I don't know why, but it would be an honor to coach him for the Aspinall fight, because that's a real heavyweight. He's a huge guy. He's super explosive. He can finish a fight at any time, and he has good takedowns. He has good striking. So he's definitely a problem. So it would be an interesting problem to solve alongside John and the rest of the coaches.
What do you think of Aspinall's jiu-jitsu?
He's definitely got good takedowns. He's got decent jiu-jitsu. The one fight I saw of him losing, he actually got heel hooked, and the heel hook wasn't particularly tight. I mean, that was a long time ago, and Tom obviously has gotten a lot better since then. But the one time I did see him actually lose a fight was to a heel hook, and it was not a particularly tight heel hook. So grappling is definitely a situation where I think that we can win the exchanges, especially because John already has a grappling background, and he's very good at putting guys down, very good at mixing everything up, very good at holding guys down. So I think that grappling is definitely a place where we can win the exchanges. But I think that Tom's grappling is up there with the rest of the guys.
By the way, when you were with John, I'm assuming the answer is yes, but just curious, did you roll with Gable Steveson? And if so, what did you make of that experience?
Yeah, Gable's great. It was, again, right after ADCC, so I was coming off like a pretty bad LCL tear, and an ACL and PCL sprain, and a grade 2 LCL tear. So I wasn't going to go like super hard with Gable because he was like 300 pounds at the time, and he's like already uber explosive. So I just didn't want to get hurt. But we just did like some light hand fighting and some training on the ground. Nothing too crazy. It was like very light, just kind of getting a feel for one another. And then, we were both there for John. Like we both understood the assignment and understood that, like, we're here to do our thing, but our primary focus is John Jones getting ready to fight for the heavyweight title. So, me and him mostly took on a coaching role, and then whenever John needed a body, that was our job.
Your health issues, and in particular your issues with your stomach, well documented. Where are we at now? How are you feeling these days?
My stomach's still not great, but I'm alive, so I can't really complain. It was really, really bad for the ADCC camp, and leading up until the ADCC camp, it's kind of gotten a little bit better now, but it's still not great. So other than my stomach, I'm pretty healthy. Like my ankles got a little hurt at ADCC, my knee got a little bit hurt at ADCC, but I'm not really too concerned about that. The main concern is just my stomach, trying to get that back on track. I actually have a appointment with my doctor, like I think early next week, my stomach doctor. So we'll see how that goes.
How is your diet? Like, are there certain foods that just kill you that you have to stay away from? Is it very restrictive these days?
I try to stay away from like fast foods or anything hard to digest, like anything that's like ultra processed.
Yeah.
And hard to digest kind of just sticks in my stomach for a while. Spicy food sometimes gets me. So just clean food most of the time. Like I'll have like a cheat meal here and there. I'm like kind of fat right now just because I've been traveling and haven't really been doing too much training because my knee's been hurt, like hard training. So I'm like kind of like a little fat guy right now, but mostly clean stuff. And then I'll have I'll have a burger sometimes or pizza sometimes. So
okay. Well, what is fat for Gordan Ryan?
My abs are like barely visible. My genetics, like my dad would always get like a little like fat down by the belly button and like the muffin top. So like that's where I like start to get fat just with my genetics. So I'm like a little pudgy right now by my midsection for me. But once I get back in shape, it'll give me like a month and it'll move up to my biceps and traps. It'll be fine.
Well, when I asked you about your stomach, you said that you're alive, so all is good. And I've seen you, I think, refer to yourself as being like half dead when you competed in ADCC, and you only kind of did it because of your relationship with them and you wanted to help them out and whatnot. Was it that dire?
ADCC was rough. Like I was going through that camp, so it was supposed to be a 12-week camp officially. And then I do like a 4-week unofficial camp just because I like to do more than most teams do, like 12-week camps. I like to do an unofficial 16-week camp. So for me, that entire 16 weeks, my stomach issue kind of progressed, and there were some things that changed, and it's not relevant too much right now. I don't want to go too much into detail, but I ended up having mast cell activation syndrome. So every time my heart rate would go up, I would just immediately get super nauseous. So because of that, the full 16 weeks, I wasn't able to finish like one single session going through it. Like either just like I got there and I would drill, and then when I would start training and my heart rate would go up and I'd like start dry heaving and have to stop. Or I wasn't even able to drill some days. So it was like the last 10 days of the camp, I messaged Mo and I was like, hey, I'm like 99% sure I'm not gonna be able to do this, but I'm gonna try. And I just was like, when do you need an answer by? And he's like, well, at least give me like a week's notice. And I was like, okay, well, we have to leave in 10 days to go to Vegas. And in those 10 days, I'll give you an answer. And that 10 days, like I just barely managed to like finish a session and like do like a hard roll with like, one or two of the guys at the end of the class. And I used that 10 days to like get my timing back for my wrestling and like used to be, or just get used to having hard matches. So I basically had a 10-day camp for that ADCC, and I was just dragging myself through it. And I was like, this is just absolutely miserable. And then I was actually going into the match with Penna, and I just like chuckled to myself in my head, and I was like, I have no idea how I'm here right now. But we made it work, so I can't really complain.
A few weeks back, you posted something on Instagram, and I've looked at this picture for a very long time, and I still can't believe that. Is the guy on the left actually you? Is that really you?
Yeah. So
you look completely different.
This is So the guy on the left, this is before 2017 ADCC, and I was doing a massive weight cut. So I was competing at 88 kilograms, which is 194, and I was cutting from like 225, and I was like 200 pounds in that picture. The picture on the right is me at my biggest. After I got my tonsillectomy, I had my tonsils removed and I had my deviated septum fixed. So I couldn't do jujitsu. My stomach was actually doing like pretty good here. I couldn't do jujitsu, but I could lift weights. So I was just lifting weights and eating. And I was like 245. So it's like a 45-pound weight difference from left to right.
Wow. And so are you closer to the guy on the right these days?
In weight, not
Yeah.
in
Right.
look. I'm
Right.
just like a fat. I'm like a fat 245 right now.
Fair enough. Anytime, like there was the whole thing with Mikey Musumeci with the PDs, and your name always gets brought up. Your stance on it now, I saw you respond to him in December, but it feels like anytime someone wants to talk on this topic in jiu-jitsu, they come after you because you're so open when it comes to this particular topic. How do you feel about it these days?
Yeah, I mean, I have a full video that I did a breakdown on my YouTube channel. It's just Gordan Loves Jiu-Jitsu, like all my other handles. I did like a 30-minute rant on like PEDs. But at the end of the day, first of all, steroids have been rampant in jiu-jitsu for like decades and decades and decades. Like this is not a new thing where steroids are just now starting to come into the sport. Like the Brazilians have been doing steroids like since like the 1900s. It's not new to the sport, number one, and number two, it's not illegal. If you want people to stop doing it, then make it illegal. So people are like, oh, you're cheating this, you're cheating that. It's like the definition of cheating is to break the rules. Like greasing, for example, would be to break the rules. Poking someone in the eyes would be to break the rules. Using PEDs is not against the rules in any of the organizations that I compete in. So until it's against the rules, until you change the rules and make it illegal, people on PEDs, which everyone is on PEDs, and people on PEDs aren't breaking any rules.
So forgive my ignorance. Like even UFC Fight Pass Invitational, they don't test. None of them test.
No, IBJJF, Nogi Worlds, and Worlds, I believe test. I'm not 100% sure. They may have started testing Nogi Pans and Pans. I'm not 100% sure. And the way it used to be, I believe, was that they tested every other podium winner. So if it was like one weight class yes, one weight class no, one weight class yes, one weight class no, they may test all the winners now, but it's only the winners and it's only on the day of the competition. So there's no random testing. So basically, if you just cycle off, you can beat the tests with like just doing some math in your head and like cycling off properly before you have to compete. But none of the other organizations besides IBJJF, to my knowledge, are testing guys.
Do you think that'll ever happen, or do you think it will remain like it is now?
Well, I think it could happen. The one problem that we have in jiu-jitsu is that there's not one governing body. So let's say, for example, that UFC Fight Pass decides to start testing athletes. So unless you're going to have athletes being exclusive, which is a whole nother issue. Let's say I'm competing as an athlete for UFC Fight Pass, and these guys are testing, and then I go to compete in ADCC, and these guys aren't testing. That means that you're gonna have guys that are fighting at UFC Fight Pass against guys that are fighting in ADCC that don't want to fight on UFC Fight Pass, and the guys at ADCC are going to be juiced up anyways. So then, if you're an athlete on UFC Fight Pass and you're getting tested, now you have to go and you have to compete in these other organizations where they don't test. So you're at a disadvantage because of the fact that one organization is testing and you have to be clean year round if they're doing random testing, and the other organizations aren't. And now, so the only way to really get past this is, number one, to have an agreement across the board on organizations, which ADCC was pretty vocal about saying that they're never going to test athletes. Like they don't care. They just want to see good matches. So you either need to have an agreement across the board, which I don't think is going to happen, or you need to have organizations that are going to sign athletes exclusive so that if you're competing for Flow or for One or for the UFC, you can only compete against athletes in those organizations, and everybody in that organization is now going to be tested. The problem is when you start talking about exclusivity, now you need to bring money. because in order to get people exclusive to your event, you have to pay them a much higher amount than you would to have them compete non-exclusive. So, and there's not enough money really to start paying these athletes all this money to be exclusive. Right now, because there's just not that much money in the sport as athletes. So you run into some problems when you start having one organization test and not the other organizations, because then you have clean athletes here that are still competing in the organizations with PEDs being legal, and then you still have athletes that are natural or more natural versus athletes that are not natural. So you run into some logistical problems here that people don't really think about.
Hey there, sorry to interrupt. Just want to remind you, if you haven't already, please do hit that subscribe button. We would appreciate it very much. And while you're at it, give us a thumbs up too. We've got live shows, interviews, clips, and a whole lot more going on this here channel. All right, now back to the show. Your relationship with UFC now, do you have any type of deal with them?
I'm not exclusive. I have a very good working relationship with UFC. The UFC, they've been very good to me. They've been very straight shooters. I'm a big straight to your face, like black and white guy. And if they're going to tell me to F off, they're going to at least do it to my face. Whereas some other organizations will be super nice to my face and then try to do things behind my back. The UFC just is if they're screw you, they're screw you. I have nothing exclusive with the UFC as of now, but I have a good working relationship with them for sure.
I saw some talk that maybe there was going to be a tough type of show with maybe you and Mikey as coaches or something like that. Is there any truth to this?
Yeah, everyone keeps saying that I'm going to be a coach against Mikey on some some grappling Ultimate Fighter show. I spoke a little bit about that. I kind of just we put it in one another's ears. I've been saying that we should do a reality show for years to build new stars. So I've definitely spoken to the UFC about it, but there's nothing set. People are talking about it being leaked that me and Mikey are doing this reality show. I'm not, as of right now, that I'm not doing any reality show against Mikey. So there's nothing as of right now that's happening.
Do you have your next match tournament set?
Nothing right now. My main thing is I'm just trying to get the school open. We're trying to get mats ordered. We're trying to get security. We're trying to get the website started. So I'm just trying to focus on getting the school open because it's been way too long, and I just need to get everything set. We need to hash out an affiliate program, all these things, which we're gonna have. But my main thing is get the school open, get it running, and then probably compete sometime later in the year.
Okay. Last Monday, I had Dillon Danis in studio, and your name got brought up. For those that missed it, just want to play the clip real quick and get your reaction. Here's Dillon. The Gordan one is one you should go after.
What, in a grappling match?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. If they paid.
Why'd you do it?
We got on big money, but that had to be a big money one because I'm the only one that went to the thing. Is that a fake fucking screen?
No, this is the window.
Oh, they just fucking realized that that's
what do you mean? Did you see the sun setting?
That's hilarious.
What do you mean? It's a freaking window.
A fucking crow just came by.
Yes.
That's not real.
What do you mean? You just saw the crow come by. What do you think? We have it on loop?
That's hilarious. Where's Connor's picture? That's a great poster, by the way. I always wanted that one.
Which one?
That Soccer Robin one.
So can I be honest with you, Gordan? In the moment, I didn't realize what was happening, and I think you posted it on your story, and I was like, shit, I did get duped here because he did a phenomenal job of changing the subject. And so what is your reaction when you see this?
Yeah, I mean, Dillon is always going to be Dillon. You got to give Dillon props. Dillon is a guy that makes things happen. He manages to stay in the public eye, not really having any credentials or skills of any kind. He's never really won anything big in he won no-gi pans. He was decent at one point in jiu-jitsu. There was always a point where he was competing with the best guys, but he could never really beat the best guys. His record at black belt is 18-16. And we always had this kind of beef going back and forth. We competed. We actually had a relatively close match. It was when he was at his near his peak in jiu-jitsu, and I was kind of just breaking onto the scene. We had a match in ADCC 2017, which I won. And ever since then, we kind of been going back and forth. He won't really like 100% acknowledge me, and he like changed the subject, like you saw, because he's I guess more famous than me. So if he does acknowledge me, he can't argue with me on facts and statistics. So he just knows that if he mentions my name, if anything, I'll get more popular because of him mentioning me. So I mean, I don't have a problem with Dillon. More power to him. He makes things happen without actually doing anything. Like he's a master of like getting himself into big matches and then like pulling out, or like just not like he doesn't do anything athletically. And he keeps getting these big matches and keeps staying in the public eye. So yeah, I mean, I'm nothing against Dillon. He's just he's not a real athlete.
So I don't think he'll mind me saying this, because when I posted that you were going to be on the program, he responded via DM, and he wrote, "Fuck Gordan." And I wrote, "Why?" And he wrote, "You know why." And I said, "I don't." And he said, "Ask him. He knows I'm the only money fight possible for him." And I wrote, "Where?" And he said, "Any jiu-jitsu league." And so do you feel like that is accurate? Are you staring at a situation where Dillon is the only quote unquote money match for you?
Well, I mean, I also have DMs with Dillon. Like one time he wanted to fight me, and I sent him my schedule of where I would be, and he didn't show up. The other times I was like, hey, he was like talking shit, and I was like, hey, do you want to compete? Like, what do you need to compete? And I was like, I can make a match happen. I can get you paid. What do you want to actually compete against me? And he just like kind of brushed it off, and he was like, you'd be lucky to compete against me. And I was like, okay, man, like I don't know what else he want me to do. I've offered to compete against him, plenty of times, both publicly and privately. I've offered to put up my own money to have my teammates compete against him, in bet matches, things like that. I don't really know what else I have to do. Dillon's is very interesting because Dillon doesn't actually do anything to make money. So unless he's like a guy who like invested in Bitcoin in like 2009, or his family has money, like there's nothing Dillon actually does. He always talks about money and like money fights and this and that. There's nothing Dillon actually does to make him money. Like he doesn't promote. He's got a ton of Instagram followers, Twitter followers, whatever. Doesn't really promote anything on there. And doesn't teach anywhere. He doesn't do privates, as far as I know. He doesn't teach. He doesn't compete. I don't even know how Dillon makes money. But it's definitely not through competing. It's definitely not through teaching. It's definitely not through having sponsors, because he has no sponsors. Like the people who follow him are kind of laughing at him and not with him. So they wouldn't like buy anything that's like Dillon Danis merchandise or anything like that. So I don't really know how Dillon makes money other than his family has money.
He does have this fight against KSI coming up next week.
Yeah, and he'll make a little bit of money doing that, but I think it's similar to the fight that he had with Logan, where it was like Dillon was just the guy that was there because he like talked shit and can get beat up. I don't think that Dillon and Logan were making nearly the same amount of on nearly the same pay structure, and I don't think that Dillon and KSI would be on the same pay structure. So like it's not like Dillon is like doing one of these fights and then he's getting $10 million and he can kind of chill. Maybe if I had to guess, he's making a couple $100,000, $500,000, something like that. Like it's not an absorbent amount of money where he can just like not do anything for like 3 years after.
By the way, that was wild when you showed up. When you showed up to the weigh-ins for his fight against Logan. I don't think we've talked since then. I remember seeing you on the way home, but like, how did that all come about? Did Logan just call you that week and say, "Come on down"?
Yeah, he messaged me because he knows that we competed and we had some beef back and forth. I actually knew Jake, not well, but I had met Jake and had a dinner with Jake at a mutual friend's house in Puerto Rico. So I kind of knew them through passing, and then and Logan, just found out that like one of my hobbies is to troll Dillon, and he was like, "Hey, can you come down and just like talk shit to Dillon?" And I was like, "Yeah, for sure." And then the second Dillon saw me, he got like super pumped up. And then he had that boxing match, which again, more credit to Dillon for what he did in the actual boxing match, because you didn't actually get a conclusion. Like it wasn't like the match ended and like Logan outright won, and he got his hand raised, and there's a picture of Dillon next to Logan with Logan's hand raised. Like he just started a fight towards the end, and then the match got canceled, and then they said that Logan was the winner, and then that was it. But like there was no like he even finagled his way into that fight with Logan, didn't really do anything to get there besides like be a Instagram guy, and then he ended up in a massive brawl, which just brought him more publicity. And he lost the fight, but he didn't really lose the fight. Like he didn't go to the scorecards, and then he lost the fight. He just kind of finagled his way in there, finagled his way out, and then like on to the next thing. Then he was like, I'm going to fight in the UFC. And they were like, no.
Do you think you guys ever compete against each other again?
No, there's no way. Dillon hasn't competed in Jiu-Jitsu in years. He's 18-16 as a black belt, 18 wins, 16 losses. He's 1-3 at ADCC. So ADCC is where we competed. It's our Olympics. It's the biggest, most prestigious tournament we have. Dillon's record there is 1-3. Dillon doesn't really have any accomplishments in Jiu-Jitsu. Number one, to even merit competing against me, but I would just do it just because he's like a funny guy on Instagram who likes to talk shit, and like that's it. It's just like a fun thing for me to do. But there's no way that he'll ever compete against me now. He's not even an athlete. He doesn't even train anymore. He just like posts online. Like once he started hanging out with McGregor, his like athletic career kind of just fell off a cliff.
Is there any chance you compete for UFC this year?
I'm hoping so. Yeah. I'm hoping that Fight Pass is throwing some money into Jiu-Jitsu. I think Dana just said they were doing $10 to $12 million this year, so it'll be exciting. I'll see what events they have later in the year and kind of go off of that. And until then, just trying to help them, build the sport and promote. This is very young sport, insofar as being a professional sport, like a serious professional sport. I think the UFC is doing a good job of pushing it, trying to push it mainstream. So I'm just here to help however I can. And then when the school's open and we have everything set and I'm feeling okay, then I'll hop back in and hopefully beat some people up.
And I remember the last time we spoke, you had the one deal and you said like you kind of owed them because you weren't able to compete. Is there any chance we ever see you in one, or has that ship sailed?
Well, so I felt bad because one was paying me, and just as I signed the contract, my stomach got so bad that I couldn't compete, and they were still paying me, and then they wanted to sign me exclusive, and the numbers didn't really make sense to be exclusive because they were trying to make all their athletes exclusive, and I was like, we couldn't come to an agreement, and I was like, listen, even though we couldn't come to an agreement, like you guys have been paying me all this time, you guys have been supporting me, I feel like I owe you something for that. So I offered to do a match for free, and they're like, oh, well, that's really kind of you, but we're only competing with exclusive athletes, from this point forward. So I was like, okay, no problem. So I don't have anything against one. I have a great relationship with Chantry, but it didn't work out, numbers wise for exclusivity. But I have nothing against competing for one. It's just if there's one guy that brings numbers in, puts butts in seats in the sport, and it's me. Like most of the tournaments that I compete on, or organizations I compete for, like I bring in 12 to 15 times the viewership of the second best guy.
Wow.
And as far as viewers. So if you're gonna want me to be exclusive, you got to pay me a lot of money.
Makes sense. That's good business. You've got instructional videos over at BJJ Fanatics, your YouTube channel that you mentioned, Gordan Loves Jiu-Jitsu, and also GordanTheKingRyan.com, where you can buy merch, links to the instructional videos, and a bunch of seminar information and stuff like that. So wish you the best. Appreciate you coming on. Great to catch up, Gordan. And hopefully you get better soon, and we'll see you back out there competing later on this year.
Thank you, guys. Got a lot of good sound bites today. That should break the internet for the next few weeks.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Gordan. All the best. There he is, Gordan Ryan. Great stuff. And what a world! What a world, this jiu-jitsu world. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. There's high drama in it. There's always a lot of fun things to talk about. Great personalities. They do a great job with the personalities. And, there's different people who have different beliefs and, the steroid stuff and all this. There's a lot of meat on that bone. And the UFC is very smart to get into it. Thanks for watching this video. Before you go, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for us. Also, give us a thumbs up, leave a nice comment. These things go a long way. And while you're here, do check out the rest of the channel. We've got live shows and full interviews, clips, and a whole lot more. We're doing big things here, and we appreciate your support very much.